All right, hour two, Sean Hannity Show. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. I'm going to play a tape that if I edited it, you would basically hear nothing but bleep, 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 bleep. But I don't think we can accurately tell this story without giving you just a small sample of what this story is about, and it's one that we better pay very, very close attention to because it represents a level of violence, a level of human depravity that we need to know is existing. Now, we got the crime statistics, for example, from Chicago for the year, 762 dead people. Since Obama's been president, over nearly 5,000 people dead. And what we have here is a mentally disturbed white young man that was tied up and tortured in Chicago by a group of African Americans who were shouting, F Donald Trump, as they sliced off a piece of this kid's scalp with a knife and broadcast this act on Facebook Live. Now, at least 4 of the victims' alleged captors have been taken into custody Wednesday after a man was found wandering a street Tuesday near the house where the police took him. They also forced this kid, they put his head in a toilet and made him drink toilet water and said F white people and F Donald Trump. And one suspect is heard telling the man in the video, which was live streamed for 30 minutes. Victim is pummeled as he sits on a floor, hands tied up, mouth taped. At one point, a man cut the scalp with a knife. My sister said, "This is not funny, you all," said the girl behind the camera, who can be seen puffing on a cigar and laughing. "Well, it's funny to me," said one of the suspects. "Tell Donald Trump it's not funny." Later in the video, someone urges the man to say, "I love black people." Now, police said the victim is believed to be from a suburb of Crystal Lake around Chicago. And they added that he knows at least one of the attackers from school and may have willingly gone to the house, but that's neither here nor there. The man was treated for cuts and burns and no charges yet filed. But here's the worst part. Chicago police, after you hear what I'm about to play, they will not refer to this as a hate crime. You know, they started out, it took public pressure to make that happen because initially it was so obvious, just watch the tape. And they had the tape. But they were reluctant. Then a public outcry ensues, and then they finally do it. So, and then on top of it, you know, one has to ask the question. Most of you probably seen this tape. We'll show it to you on Hannity tonight, but it's a tortured tape of this special needs man live streamed on Facebook. And it is just so beyond the pale. You know, it does add credence to Donald Trump's tweet to Rombo Deadfish. If you can't clean up this mess where nearly 1,000 people are dying every year in your city and 4,000 are being shot every year, well, we'll come in and do it for you. Do Black Lives Matter? Because 80% of the victims are black victims in this case. What is being done to protect human life here? And in this particular case, a racial crime and torture. So I am going to play this for 1 minute. And if you have kids in the car, if you don't want to hear it, don't blame me after because I'm giving you due warning. So stations around the Sean Hannity Show network, you know, just beware. You may want to play music for 1 minute. It'll be 1 minute exactly. And then if you do tune out, you can tune it right back in.
What? Donald Trump, nigga. White people, what? That was legit. Donald Trump. No. I should knock your ass out right now, nigga. Stand up, boy. Hey, this nigga right here, he represents Trump. This PPG hothead. Hey, this PPG hothead speaking. Y'all see this nigga right here? We finna put this nigga in the trunk, and we finna put a brick on the gas and let that. You understand me? Just watch the Chicago news. Put a brick on the gas. You feel me? Bitch ass nigga. I'm gonna let her talk to y'all. Yeah. Yeah, nigga. Donald Trump, you Donald Trump gang, nigga.
Why they on there?
Why this nigga on? Why is it? So why is it not tied then, nigga? Say Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Tie your ass. Move your hand.
All right, that's just a small snippet of the torture this kid went through. Joining us now is the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's the founder of Rebuilding the Family by Rebuilding the Man, author of The Antidote, Healing America from the Poison of Hate, Blame, and Victimhood. Also, Pastor Charles Christian Adams, presiding pastor of the Hartford Memorial Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome both of you to the program. And Pastor Adams, is there any doubt in your mind that this is a racial hate crime?
It is, by the legal definition, I am not sure. I'm going to let the
I'm not asking, but is there any, I asked you.
It is certainly one that is driven by a culture of hatred and intolerance.
Well, let me ask you, if it said F Barack Obama and F black people, wouldn't that be a racial hate crime?
It certainly is driven by, I don't know.
Why are you reluctant to say what is obvious?
I'm not sure whether the prosecutor will apply.
I'm not asking you, though. I'm not, wait a minute. I'm not, but Pastor, please. I'm not asking you for the legal definition. I'm asking if you hear these words, F Donald Trump, F white people, this is a white kid, he's treated this way. Racial incendiary language is used throughout the entire episode that they covered in 30 minutes. And I'm asking, do you not see this for what it is, which is a racial hate crime? Do you personally?
Race definitely is playing a part in this. Intolerance is playing a part in this. There is no doubt about it. And it is intolerable. The crime is intolerable, and we cannot put up with it. They must be held accountable for their actions. Absolutely.
Jesse Lee Peterson.
Hey, Sean, this is definitely a racial hate crime. And for the last 26 years, I've been writing about these things, talking about these things, screaming about these things, and that white Americans are under attack. There's a race war happening, and it's been happening against white folks for years. We saw it in the knockout game where young black thugs were going around and knocking white people out, killing them, robbing them, and raping them in some cases. The media and liberals would not say anything about it. And this is an example of things to come if we don't start dealing with it. Dylan Roof went into a black church, I believe in South Carolina, and he killed black people there. And right away, the Department of Justice, Barack Obama and others call it a hate crime. And that was true. That was justified. But whenever it's a black on white situation, such as we see in this situation, they refuse to call it a hate crime. And the reason that they're not calling it that, because they too hold grudges against white folks, and they want black people acting out like this. My concern is that if we don't call it what it is, and these boys and those girls that was involved in this situation are not punished, it's only going to get worse because they do not fear authority.
I want to add one thing.
Or the cops or anyone.
You're both pastors, and look, I'm not a pastor. I'm not a man of the cloth. I'm one of the imperfect Christians that needs forgiveness. So I don't want to quote the Bible and Scripture too much here, but I do believe this: if every man, woman, and child on this earth is created by God, which I believe, and they're all built, and inside of every child is innate God-given talents. And the word education goes to the root of that in the Latin, which means to bring forth from within. And you've got over 4,000 people killed in Chicago during Obama's presidency, close to 5,000 people killed during Obama's presidency, and hardly ever a word out of him. But if it's the Cambridge police acting stupidly and it advances a political narrative, well, the president was wrong there. Or the Ferguson case where he jumped in and weighed in against the officer in that case, even though Michael Brown is the one that robbed the store, intimidated the clerk, fought a cop for his gun, and charged at an officer. And black eyewitnesses are the ones that told us that. Or a one eyewitness in the Trayvon Martin case that saw Trayvon Martin grounding and pounding George Zimmerman's head into a cement, or the Freddie Gray case, a known drug dealer in the neighborhood in Baltimore. So my question to you, Pastor Adams, is, why doesn't the president weigh in when you've got nearly 5,000 dead Americans in your home city and you don't utter a word? But if it's a high-profile racial case, even though you don't have any facts, you speak out about it as a lawyer and as the president, and you politicize it through a racial prism? Don't you think there's something wrong with Obama here?
Sure. Well, I'm sure that the president will weigh in on it when the facts are in.
But he didn't weigh in.
Certainly,
in at 8 years.
To blame Obama as if he is the only one that can have an impact on the quality of life in Chicago, it really doesn't help at all. First of all, he's not the only one who is governing the national policy.
Reverend, this is he would weigh in on every high-profile racial case. And we've watched nearly 5,000 people die in his home city and nary a word out of this president about the carnage in his home city. Why?
But, Sean, not only did Obama ignore what was happening in Chicago in the last 8 years, he has created the Ferguson effect in that officers are now hands-off, per se, because they're afraid of losing their lives. They're afraid of losing their careers. They're afraid for their families. And so now they can't even go into that area there in Chicago and really take care of the situation by arresting the criminals and protecting the good folks in those areas. Barack Obama and other liberals, they want these things to be happening in the inner cities because as long as they are happening, they can cry racism, they can intimidate white Americans, they can get power and wealth from this. Black people voted for Barack Obama twice in the hope that he would make their lives better, even though the government never going to do that. But they thought that he was going to clean up the mess. They thought that he was going to rebuild families and that he would help bring jobs back into the communities. He has not done any of those things, and he has not taken responsibility for not doing anything. And for the Reverend to say that Barack Obama could not have done this, he could have. Barack Obama is the president of the United States. He's black. He could have easily gone into the urban areas and cleaned this mess up before leaving office.
But you know what? I find it interesting that we want to blame Barack Obama for what is wrong in America, but you didn't want to give Bill Clinton credit for the murder rate going down in New York when he was president. You want to give Rudolph Giuliani.
Well, Rudy Giuliani. Wait. Well, I live.
Even when stop and
Pastor, I was here in New York. Bill Clinton had nothing to do with stop and frisk. Going into the most dangerous areas with the highest crime rates was the mission of Mayor Giuliani, and thousands of lives were saved because the murder rate was cut dramatically, more than in half, by like 100% almost.
I was a graduate student in New York in the 90s.
Well, then you should know that's true. I was there too.
I know that stop and frisk did not lower the murder rate. A rising economy
You do not,
did.
with all,
we saw
Pastor, you do not know
that we hadn't seen in the history of Harlem.
Pastor,
since its glory days.
I have no idea what city you were living in at the time, but I can tell
Manhattan.
you, because I was living here, that is absolutely false. Stop and frisk, policing in areas with the highest crime rates, resulted in a murder rate going from 2,300 a year, eventually down to 300 a year.
When it was struck down, the murder rate also continued to go down. And what you saw was prosperity that was not only helping New York and not only lowering the murder rates in New York, but lowering murder rates throughout the whole country.
You know, another thing that Obama could have done, Reverend, another thing Obama could have done, he could have helped rebuild black families. These boys and girls who are committing these crimes in their own communities, well, they shouldn't be doing them anywhere, but they're committing these crimes because they feel unloved. They don't have their fathers and mothers there to guide them in the right way to go. They feel helpless in life. They're angry. And so they've been told that the white man is their problem, that white people are discriminating against them, and they are taking that anger out on white Americans when it really starts in the homes. And I had hoped that Barack Obama would do something about that. Barack Obama is married. He has 2 daughters, and he's there for his family. The number one thing that should have been a part of his agenda is rebuilding the families, encouraging black men and black women to get back together and raise their children in the right way to go. Then they would be better off in life. These kids are hurting because their parents are not together, and no one is really dealing with that issue. But we are. If you go to rebuildingtheman.com, you will see we are doing it for the last 26 years. But the primary issue is that we got to give these boys and girls fathers and mothers to guide them, because that anger starts there. And then the race hustlers tell them that it's the white man. There is no reason for young black people to be hating white folks in the manner that they're hating them in 2016 or 17. This country has come together as much as they could concerning the race issue. This is insane. It's not the cops' fault. It is the family fault.
I got to leave it here. I will tell you this, that if we care about these young men and women that are getting killed every day, we better do something fast. And if stop and frisk is going to save all those lives, that's a good start.